Imagine a place where people no longer kept watch through their front window to determine whether the welcome mat would remain on the porch. Such is the work of being community. Such is the journey, the destination, the kingdom of God. Go well in your deliberations. Amen.
Yeah, I got your message. That's fine. Yeah. So you're just
Jacob is the Democracy Team Leader. Welcome along and thank you for joining us. Now, I want to now acknowledge a couple of people. I want to, first of all, give a fond farewell on behalf of the Council to Suzanne, who has been our trusty companion here in this chamber for 3 years, but with Council for 28 years. Go well, Suzanne. Thank you very much for everything you've done for all of the elected members in the time that you have served us. You've been a wonderful person to have around on the night board, and all the very best. So I think we're going to acknowledge Jo. Now I also want to acknowledge Fiona. Hello Fiona, how are you? Now I understand that this is your last council meeting before you head off into the horizon, and you've been a trusty companion to us and all the time you've been on council with the finances. We want to wish you all the very best and thank you very much for all the work you've done with our complicated business and the assistance you've given the elected members, and good luck with your new endeavours. Thank you. All right, the next thing I want to just quickly acknowledge is we do have some Wintec students in the audience today. Welcome along. I hope you enjoy the council meeting, and I do want to acknowledge former Mayor Margaret Evans and former Councillor Mabora Hamilton, who are also in the public gallery today. Okay, we'll start with the items, councillors. So the first is apology. So we have an apology. Yes, we've got a leave of absence for Councillor O'Leary. And I have an apology for Angela. She has been on leave of absence, but I think that that leave of absence expired because of the distance between the two council meetings. So I would ask for support for a retrospective leave of absence, and she's advised that she will be back on Friday to chair I think it's the events committee on Friday. So I presume that there is no issue with a retrospective leave of absence covering that short period. Okay, so that's moved. So I'll move that. The Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Hennebury. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now, confirmation of the agenda. Now, I'll move the agenda, Councillor, subject to, we're going to take item 16 after item 6, simply for practical reasons with Tony Steele here from Audit and Risk Committee. So subject to moving that item up the agenda, I'll move it, and seconded by Councillor Hennebury. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Public forum. There are no people who wish to speak in the public forum. Item 5, confirmation of minutes. So I will move the council meeting minutes for 16 August 2012, extraordinary meeting 4 September 2012 and extraordinary meeting 11 September 2012, seconded by the Deputy, Councillor Wilson. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you. Right, next item on the agenda, item 6, which is the document execution. On page 5, moved by Councillor Gowes, seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Right, next item is item 16, which is on page 35, and this is the Audit and Risk Committee minutes. Now, we're going to start this by asking that Tony Steele, who is the Deputy Chair of Audit and Risk, and Richard Briggs, the CFO, to join us. So what we might do, councillors, before we move those minutes, I'll ask Tony to speak to those, and Richard as well. So these, attached to those minutes, councillors, is the final annual report, and there's a recommendation of the Audit and Risk Committee that that report be approved by council. So Tony, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. The minutes, I just would like to comment that the major issues that we addressed on the day were to approve and adopt the annual report from our perspective on financials. We made a recommendation then that the accounts could come to council for approval. We had a lengthy period with the auditors and asked them questions on the process, dealing with the more serious issues that obviously flick up in the accounts. We got adequate solutions and answers from them. We also got an assurance from them that the process internally with the staff had improved significantly, and they were very happy with the improvements that had occurred. We looked at the organisation improvements work program. We're comfortable that that's progressing. I can tell you that at the end of June, when we had our meeting, our first meeting, we had approximately 50% of the 77 issues on the program had been completed. By our meeting in September, I can tell you that we've now got nearly 70% of those completed. Of those uncompleted, roughly 60% relates to the finance area, and those were held up pending Richard's appointment. So I'm sure he'll now get stuck into those and get those out of the way as well. So that's progressing very well and is a very effective process. We talked about risk management. Again, the process with risk management has been formalised, it's well organised, the framework is in place, and I'd have to say I think that's going to progress very quickly, and it will be a good exercise for everybody to follow. The staff, I believe, have bought into the whole process of risk management, and the change in culture apparently was quite noticeable. We had a one-page report from the internal auditors, which was quite refreshing, only to say, however, that of the 7 reviews that they undertake, 3 of those are progressing in time and will be reported on time, and 4 items are yet to be started. And then we had a look at the Audit New Zealand quality audit of Project Phoenix, and again there were 4 recommendations came out of that review, and 2 of those have already been completed, and the other 2 have a date of 1 October against them. Not sure whether that will be completed or not. So that's basically a breakdown, Your Worship, on the meeting.
Thank you very much. Now, I just might see, Richard, is there anything that you wanted to add to that, or anything else, and then we'll take questions, councillors, after we've had the complete
Thank you, Your
report.
Worship. Yes, I'd like to add, there's been an amendment to the financial statements that are included in the agenda.
What page is that?
So the key changes, Your Worship, on page 67 of the financial statement. And the change, Anthony's going to hand out the changes. The changes are were subject to a decision by Audit New Zealand in terms of the treatment of a contribution within Vibrant Hamilton Trust from the Waikato Foundation. Their decision, based on their technical advice, was the distribution of $4.67 million to Vibrant Hamilton Trust was not an equity distribution based on various accounting promulgations, was in fact and should in fact be treated as income. Now this is been picked up within the group financial statements, and you'll notice that the income in the group columns for actual 2012 has increased by that amount. Now that is only an accounting treatment. It does not have any impact on council from a rating or a funding point of view, and it is a disclosure requirement we're required to meet to comply with generally accepted accounting practice. Thank you.
Right, is there anything else, Richard, you wanted to add? That was it?
That was it.
Good, okay.
Just can you show us exactly in this table?
Okay.
And I have to say, from a governance point of view, with due respect, and I don't know the views of the chair of our finance committee. This, am I right? This is the first time I've heard about this as a councillor, right? And I know this is a bookkeeping issue, but you're asking me in 30 seconds to grasp and to grasp. So I think I would just like to suggest constructively that that kind of information should be pre-circulated with a note.
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. It's a good point, and to be fair, this was raised by the auditors only a day or so ago.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
I'm not shooting the messenger.
Just point to the councillors on the financial.
Absolutely.
So we're looking on the comprehensive income statement.
So
just where the movement is.
Okay, so if you look at the original version of page 67, if you look at the statement of change in equity down the bottom of the page, if you look under, there's a line there that's called capital contribution from Waikato Foundation Trust, and it has there 4.67 million. Yep. So that's the amount that's in question. And based on Audit New Zealand's declaration and their understanding, well, the technical team's ruling on the promulgations, that amount has now been removed. If you refer to the adjustment was done there, and that's now been included in the statement of comprehensive income under income. And you'll see that in the previous version we had 219 million, we're now 224 million. So that's in the group columns. Actual, the second row of numbers, the fourth column of numbers.
Actual.
Yeah, yes, actual 2012 group, the blue shaded columns. Previously 219 million, now 224 million.
That's it, yep.
So just so that councillors are clear, what you're saying is Audit New Zealand's technical team has said that rather than you treating it as equity, you are to treat it as income.
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
Just moving it from one plan to another, that's all.
Yeah.
So
Always want to
question,
make sure.
councillors, Councillor Hennebrand.
Look, I'm going back to item 7 in your report, Tony. Audit New Zealand's director introduced the report that the committee members asked the audit question in relation to council's property land valuation, the methodology and assumptions employed to reach these. That's very well done, but what was the answer and how was that affected?
Well, the answer from the auditors was that they had, because of the quantum of the revaluation figure, that they had queried the valuers as to the process, whether there'd been any change in the process, what changes there might have been in their outlook as to use of properties. The major portion of the revaluation write-down in effect is to land, and it relates to parks and recreational land.
So it was written down?
Yes.
Okay, so there was nothing else that went up extraordinary that you were querying?
There would, no. Well, we looked at the total figure. There would be some increases, there would be some reductions, but by far and away the parks and recreational land contributed the major portion of that write-down.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from councillors? No? Right. Okay, thank you. So just in respect of this item then, I'm happy to move that the minutes be accepted, but I just want to raise a correction on number 6, if I could, where it says, Your Worship, the Mayor spoke to the report and provided an overview. That's not actually right. What I did was I talked about the steps that were outlined in the annual plan to address Council's financial position. That is what that should read. So subject to that correction, I'm moving these Audit and Risk Committee minutes. And is there a seconder, please? Councillor McPherson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Carried, thank you. So thank you very much, Tony, for coming along. Now, just, councillors, part of the Audit and Risk Committee is there are also publicly excluded minutes which need to be approved as well. So I am intending now to move that we go into public to approve those minutes, and that will give councillors an opportunity to also then, while Tony Steele is here, to ask any questions in relation to that aspect of the Audit and Risk Committee's minutes. So I'm expecting that shouldn't take too long, but I'm just letting the public know that we will do that. And then we've finished with that item. So I'll move that we go into public excluded.
I'll second.
Seconded by councillor Westphal. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. So I'd imagine, members of the public, that we won't be more, 10 minutes perhaps, so if you'd like to just wait outside. Our session in respect of the Audit and Risk Committee, I did just want to make sure that it was noted in the minutes in respect of a complaint that was made to the Office of the Auditor General. A complaint that was made to the Office of the Auditor General arising out of the V8s matter, and as councillors know, we have received a response to that complaint, and I do want it put on the council record that the Auditor General intends not to pursue further that complaint on the two matters that were raised. So I do want to just highlight the response given by the Auditor General, and I'll read that. Having considered the request and supporting material provided, we have concluded that a further general inquiry would add little value. The concerns identified in the request are already well known to councillors, management and the public of Hamilton generally, and the council is taking appropriate steps to respond to these concerns. And on the other matter, Audit New Zealand report into council's decision-making processes in relation to the V8 event was critical of some aspects of the councillors' involvements in those decisions. However, the report identified a number of shortcomings in the accuracy and adequacy of information provided to councillors, and established that in some instances actions were taken without their knowledge or authority. So I know, councillors, you wanted that to be a matter of public record, and that release from the Auditor General's office is in the public domain for people to view or for the media to pick up and report. So, Deputy Mayor, was there anything else you wanted to add, because it was you that wanted that matter raised?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I thought it was important for the matter to be tabled, particularly after the discussion around audit and risk, and this matter did have a reputational risk, I suppose. Reputational risk relates to the person who made the complaint and those who were complained about. It does go both ways, so I appreciate you getting that into the record, because it is important for councillors and also to the Auditor General's office to have responded to a rather thick file of complaints from a former Mayor of Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor, I did also just want to add, having now approved the annual report for the most recent financial year, that I want to thank councillors for their commitment to the financial strategies that we put in place to address some of the financial issues, and the significant progress we have made in addressing issues that we've identified as we've gone along on this journey. We are receiving very positive feedback from Audit New Zealand, from the Auditor General's office, and from those experts who are advising us that we are making excellent progress, and that we have a number of things in place in this council now that are groundbreaking for local government, and I think speak to our commitment to getting systems and processes that are world-class and leading in local authorities. I also want to say that the financial outcome identified in our report is an excellent result. And continues our journey to our surplus and our balanced budget. So I want to thank councillors for their commitment on that, and staff for their commitment in keeping to that plan. Particularly, we've had a few hiccups in the last financial year with the Claudelands budget and other issues, but we have kept to our budget, and staff have done an exceptional job in ensuring that we do keep to that. So thank you very much to all those concerned, and thank you to the CE for leading the organisation in that endeavour. Okay, item number 7 is a report from Brian Crode in relation to the hearings process for the district plan. So Brian, I'd like to come here up, please. So this is on page 6, Councillor. I think you can take it as read, Brian, unless there was something you particularly wanted to highlight.
All I was going to say, Your Worship, I'd like to put this report in for the shortest report to council award.
Right, I think we should start one of those awards, actually.
I
Right,
would
good
like
idea.
to second that.
Yes, okay, I think that's how we'll proceed from now on, everyone.
Well, that makes me
Fabulous.
quite suspicious to start with.
So it's just really a tidy up, Your Worship, and like you've said, it's very self-explanatory. I think the intention was always that I was going to be part of the little group to evaluate the commissioner, and that comes back to council. So hopefully that's not a problem. And the second issue was really to confirm the two hearing panel approach that the council wants to take. And why that's there really is that when we get through the process and appoint our two commissioners, they're going to have to set some serious time aside in their calendar going forward to next year. And we don't want to get into that situation where those people are putting time aside and turning away work appointments, and then the process, for one reason or another, not progressing. So that's really just to tidy up those two little matters and put them beyond any doubt. So that was all I wanted to say. Thank
So,
you.
councillors, are there any questions on this? No? So, Councillor Mahoda, are you happy to move that recommendation? And I'll second that. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 8 on page 8 is the report. Sean Murray will speak to this. Welcome, Sean. Hello, Tracy. Welcome. So I think, again, you can take the report as having been read unless there's anything you particularly wish to highlight.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I do want to highlight one error that's in the paper, sorry, two errors on the same line, if I may.
Yes.
If you have a look at paragraph number 14 on page 9, it reads, in 2009, Councillor Boss visited. It should read 2008. The year is incorrect. That's 2008, not 2009.
Okay.
And a deletion of the word again after the mention of Councillor Boss, because he only visited either on one occasion in this capacity.
Right, thank
So I
you.
apologise for that error, but I think it's important to bring
Right.
that to your attention.
Councillors, are there any questions of the GM? Yes, Councillor Mahoda.
No, it's not a question. I'm going to move the report and I'd like to speak to it when we do.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Your Worship, I've got a couple of questions.
Right, okay, so we'll take questions. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Could you expand on what you believe the ratepayers of Hamilton will glean from this closer relationship? I know we have sister cities. This isn't as far as the sister city relationship, but what will the residents of Hamilton glean from it?
I think the intent of the report, first of all, is to recognise that there has been quite a long standing series of ties, if you like, that have grown over the years between the City of Hamilton and EPA as it relates to ceremonies and celebration, if you like, of certain aspects of from World War I and beyond. And there have been a number of informal visits. There's been a number of engagements over the years of friendship, if you like, between the two, in particular recognising past Hamiltonians and so forth, and the First World War, and acknowledging the people of EPA in terms of their respect and their care and attention to the issues from the war. The relationship has been very much, has been strong but very informal, and I guess all this is suggesting is that we put in place a more formalised type relationship, but certainly not to the extent or depth of a traditional sister city. I think the view that we've had is that there's an opportunity for us through a more formal arrangement to make sure that the work that has been done up and now in terms of that friendly relationship actually be maintained and be held within Hamilton City for the future, as opposed to having to rely solely just on the strength of the work that's been done by different individuals from both cities. It's not seen here as an economic type relationship. This is a friendship. It's historic, and I guess what we were suggesting in the paper that we go beyond the friendship nature of the friendship relationship we have now to saying what other sort of social and cultural ties can be added to that. So it's really just formalising what has been in place for some time.
Could you expand on your report where it says advance a more formal exchange of visits? Do you see this as a mayor-led or initiative, or do we need to put some funds in the annual plan to fund such a... What are you meaning by a more formal exchange of visits?
I think, through the chair, Councillor Wilson, we're just talking about, when we say more formal, it's sort of almost more sanctioned and official city-to-city relationship. We certainly are not advocating here that there's any missions of visits and budget and everything else applied. It's just formalising those visits that have been occurring, and if there's any other opportunities that may present themselves at some stage, to just recognise that the city does have a formal relationship with EPA. So it's not, we're not suggesting a big budget here, we're not suggesting a big formal action, it's just the relationships that we have now are sort of more sanctioned.
So when you say not a big budget, I guess that implies there will be a budget. Have you turned your mind to the quantum of that budget?
Not at all, and certainly the thinking at this point is not even suggesting that there be a budget. There's no doubt that if something ever happened at some stage, that would be something to consider within the existing budgets that are in place for those sorts of relationships at the time.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. This is sort of question or comment, or do you want to leave comments for later?
Well, we're on questions at the moment, so unless it's a question, no.
Okay, no, I'll wait.
Right, thank you. Any other questions on the report? No, so Councillor Mahout has moved it, seconded by...
Councillor Westphal.
Councillor Westphal has seconded. Now, Councillor Mahout, you indicated you wanted to speak to it. Thank you.
I'm pleased that we've had a few questions asked today, because I think it helps to clear up what I think is for a future very good relationship with something that is quite unique. This city has been very fortunate to have this opportunity, and I just want to acknowledge Councillor Peter Fox. I mean, his name threads through this whole report. It was his initiative, his idea, his contacts, his personality. I'll leave it at that, otherwise I might say things I don't want to say. That really has helped to show us that there are other ways by which our city can celebrate and get close relationships with other cities. And I think this one is extraordinary. The reason I'm happy that it comes forward now and I'm supporting the recommendation go forward is because I know that through the civic subcommittee we're looking at a whole plethora of different ways in which we can have relationships. This needs to be done now, and that's because we do know that the big celebrations and hopefully some money from government will be made available for some celebrations later on. We need to bed this down now. This is going to be something where the whole world will be knocking on EPA's door to get a slice of their history as the Anzac celebrations come forward. I think while we're fortunate enough still to have Councillor Boss on our council, and I'm sure whatever his relationships when he leaves with them will continue until they're all put into a little grave somewhere. This is something that I think really is very important for the city, and I would like to have it put in here now so that any plans and opportunities that we can have to help strengthen in this particular area is something good. So I'm just explaining why I'm happy to support it. I want to acknowledge my friend over there.
Thank you.
And I also want to acknowledge the wonderful relationship that I have seen grown from the very beginning when he said, I have a good idea. Bossy has some interesting ideas. This was one of his absolute best. I won't say it's his best, but I think it's got an absolutely wonderful future. So I'm happy to move it.
Thank you very much. Now, Deputy Mayor, did you want to make a comment now?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. Look, I'm very happy to support the mover and the seconder on this proposal. It isn't about economic development, and it's not about sister city relationships. It's a cultural and historic connection which Councillor Boss has developed for us. I think what's interesting is that the costs so far have actually been sponsorship. And so the people from EPA have come out under sponsorship. Councillor Boss and his wife have gone to EPA on sponsorship, which he personally raised. And so I think that removes the concept of having to provide a budget. And I think that the great opportunity around this is probably the sponsorship situation. Two real connections, of course. The Pioneer Battalion had a large number of Tainui in that battalion, and a number of those soldiers lost their lives on those battlefields. And when the delegation from EPA was out for Anzac Day, there was an opportunity taken to visit with the Maori King, Tuheitia, and to provide him with a book with a list of all those Maori members and their addresses who served and died in that area. And I understand that the people in EPA are now planning to invite the Maori King in 2013, and it is also possible that an invitation will be extended to Sir William Gallagher, because there is a connection, I understand, with, I think, New Zealand All Black, and there is a family relationship there. So we already have connections with the city that are at a very high level. And I'm assured that Sir William, because it's just a hop, step and a jump to Brussels, would take an opportunity for the Gallagher Group to extend a cultural historic visit into potentially a visit that will have some economic benefit, certainly not at a cost to the city, at a cost to the Gallagher Group, but for the benefit of the city. So just for those brief comments, that's why I'm supporting this proposal today.
Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, I certainly support the proposal, and I want to place on public record my deep appreciation for all the work that Councillor Boss has done with this relationship. I think this relationship obviously is not just about a community-to-community relationship, but it is a place in Europe where we, as a city, focus on the many Waikato soldiers that are in graves in Europe from that tragic World War I conflict. Indeed, if you visit, as all of you have, the World War I Return Services Cemetery in the old Hamilton Cemetery adjacent to Hamilton Gardens, and you read those headstones, particularly those who obviously passed away and died of war-related conditions and injuries, let alone influenza, in the early 20s, it is very, very poignant indeed. This is also, I guess, appropriate that we should be discussing this now, because obviously this council and the community will be further discussing how we appropriately acknowledge the centenary of obviously the commencement of World War I, which of course was sheer tragedy in terms of the lives and the proportion of young men relative. We were one of the highest countries in terms of loss, as we are aware. But I'm very keen that we as a city do not forget those young Hamiltonians and Waikato men and women who went to that conflict, and that we take the opportunity in 2014 to acknowledge them so that they are not forgotten. And I'm thinking very much at the local level. We have the national, and we'll obviously will have appropriate national commemorations, but it's actually giving it that local touch. It's giving the local touch that there are families, obviously, in this city and area, surrounding area, who lost loved ones, albeit 100 years ago. But I guess our message to the young people today is that we must not forget them. So I hope, while we are under financially constrained times, I do hope as a city, with the funding agencies that are out there, and certainly with the good guidance of my good colleague Councillor Boss and others, we do step up to the plate and we look at an appropriate way in which we will commemorate the 2014 centenary. As part of that, I would say that our memorandum of understanding with EPA is entirely appropriate and very, very timely. And indeed, it is my understanding that there may be one or two other communities that would have liked to have had a similar memorandum of understanding. But I think let's, and I would say simply this, that the reason that we have this memorandum of understanding, I believe, is primarily because we have, in this case, the good fortune to have a colleague, Councillor Boss, who's done a heap of work to get us to this point. And if this memorandum of understanding does nothing more than to incentivise young Hamiltonians and Waikato young people on their OE to visit EPA because they've read about it and they know that there's some connection, and through that to have a greater awareness and respect and reverence for young people 100 years ago before them who did not return and who served this country at the time, and to have a sense of the history and, dare I say it, the many graves and the many New Zealanders that are in foreign graves around the world, then this will have served its purpose. Frankly, I think I also want to say that finally, how impressed we have all been that this town in Belgium remembers us. This town in Belgium remembers us 100 years later. And I think you can't fail but to be moved by all the volunteers and the people that troop up nightly to the gate, Menham Gate in EPA. So to me, they have more than sort of, if you like, held out their hand of friendship and respect for us. And it's great through this memorandum of understanding that we're returning that hand of friendship and respect.
Could you repeat that, Mark?
Thank you. Look, I just want to add my own comments. It's absolutely appropriate that we enter into this memorandum of understanding, I'm not sure I'm on, to formalise a relationship that has been established with our city and EPA for some time. The value of this relationship, I think, will be really crystallised in 2014, and this is why it is important to put this in place now. And I do want to say to Councillor Boss, on behalf of this council and our city, thank you very much for the work that you have done to establish this relationship and to nurture it to this point, and you certainly deserve the thanks of the city. So I'll now put council on the voices. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you. Item 9, future-proof minutes.
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Westphal. I'll second. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Now, I think, councillors, we have a duplication there, so we don't actually have an item 10. It was sort of a repeat, if you like. So we're now on to item 11, which is the strategy and policy minutes from the 25th of September. Now, Councillor Westphal, I'm in your hands here with those. Councillors, you would have had those separately circulated?
Yes, Your Worship. I think we should take this in two parts.
Thank you.
So what I'll do is I'll move the minutes of the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting of the 25th of September, excluding items 6, 8 and 17.
6, 8 and 17.
I'll second.
Right, so councillors, all those in favour? Any against? So that part's carried. Thank you, Councillor Westphal.
So, Your Worship, I'll go to item 6 first. And also, I'd like to start off by congratulating the staff on the minutes. This is a new formula for the minutes, and I think that this is certainly from my committee, this is the first time that we've had a good description of the discussion, and I think they have done very well with that. There's just I have to make a few changes, but that's okay. So with item 6, there were two motions. Now, the first motion is fine. The second motion actually says in the minutes that the proposed smoke-free policy be adopted. In actual fact, what that should read is that the adoption of the proposed smoke-free policy be deferred to the council meeting of September the 27th to enable staff to include amendments as discussed at the meeting. and I know that this might sound a bit trivial, but we have to be accurate in how we actually accept the policy. So that was the wording change there. And in B, Council worked with the Waikato Bay of Plenty Cancer Society of New Zealand and the Waikato District Health Board's Population Health Unit to monitor the effectiveness of and the public compliance with. Just that didn't sound. It's supposed to be and the public compliance with the policy.
Can I just check, Councillor Westphal, my recollection was it also included Midland Health?
Yes, it did. And it's the Waikato District Health Board, comma, Population Health, which is not Waikato District Health. So there are three distinct groups plus Midland Health.
Thank you.
And I thought that was what I had put on these. Yeah, and we put it.
Right, so we've got that correction there.
Just those three, the Waikato Bay of Plenty Cancer Society, the Waikato District Health Board, and Population Health.
And Midland Health.
And Midland.
And Midland Health, yeah. Those four.
Right.
So,
so do you want to then deal now with the amended policy?
yes, and so maybe if we could we do this first? Move and approve this first, and then we have to go to the email that we got from Jacob, and we have to look at the memo, and then the policy, or the policy in conjunction with the memo.
So you're moving item 6 of those minutes with those amendments, and is there a seconder? Councillor Mahodi, seconder?
Yeah.
Okay, councillors, all those in favour? Any against? Carried? Right, we're on to the memo.
So, Your Worship, staff have, in that memo, have clarified all the questions that were asked at the meeting. I don't know if there's any questions on that. And the only thing that would be added to the policy is, and what they're asking us to do in this memo, is in relation to Garden Place, that permitted outdoor dining areas within Garden Place will be exempt from the smoke-free prohibitions, providing those smoking are paying customers and are seated at outdoor dining facilities provided by that business.
And sports fields is different too.
So,
sports fields is another one.
well, that's in here too. Do you want to bring that up? Bring it up now.
So I think, Councillor Westphal, that was a suggestion in the memo, but the policy itself doesn't say that at this stage.
For that to be added to the policy.
Right, so
But-
Tegan, perhaps if we go to you,
Yeah.
do you just want to make any comments or have...
Yeah, so just by way of explanation, after there was some information in the media, we've received a number of phone calls from interested or affected parties, and one of them, I guess, caused us to do some consultation with Embargo and just sort out some of their views, and they expressed the difficulty that this might cause for them in terms of their business. So just bringing back to council that it is a consideration, it's a political decision. We've just provided some wording if you want to address that in any way.
Okay, and Tegan, was there anything else you wanted to refer us to in the particular policy itself, which has got some track changes there?
No, I think the covering memo outlines all the changes.
Right, thank you. So Councillor McPherson.
Look, firstly, thanks for the covering memo. It made it a lot easier to follow the changes and bits and pieces were. I have a problem with the proposal now, the new proposal in the memo for Garden Place.
So Councillor McPherson, just clarity, we've got the policy, and the policy doesn't include what's in the memo at this stage. So
yes, and the proposal is to include it, is my understanding.
No, the recommendation is for council to make a decision on whether it wants to include it or not.
So at the moment it's not including the policy, but you're going to speak to why you wouldn't want it in the policy.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, okay.
And I also, if I can, I wanted to bring up the sports fields thing as well, but maybe as a separate bit. We have to divide it up.
No, why don't you go with all of your comments?
Right. I have a problem right now with the current smoking outdoors sort of situation with restaurants around the place. If I go, and I think the Deputy Mayor said it quite well at the meeting the other day, if I attend a restaurant in summer, I quite like to have my coffee or my meal outside if the weather's okay. And what I really object to is smokers sitting down next to me And as the part of the overwhelming majority of the population on this issue, I don't appreciate that anywhere outside a restaurant can actually be available for smokers. Now, if there was somewhere defined, small area outside, where it said this is a smoking area and I had a choice of another area, I'd wear that as a reasonable solution. But just sort of saying, taking embargo, because it's been raised as the example, any of these outdoor seats is available for smokers, and you sit down, there's no one else there, and then a smoker comes along and sits next to you, and that happens all the time, I wouldn't go back to embargo, for instance. So that if you can see my problem with this sort of open-ended policy. If we said they have to define which part of their outdoors area is smoking and notify that with just a little notice or a table notice or something minor, then I can make a choice. But at the moment, there's no choice available for me. So I'm not happy with the wording of that unless we can rejig
Well,
that a bit.
at this stage, it's not in the policy.
Correct.
So
Yeah, so I'm speaking against that wording.
even in being included, that's
Suggesting
fine.
anyone that might want it might
Yes.
like to look at some
Right.
improved wording.
And what was your other point that you wanted to raise
Well,
about the
sports fields, it's the
policy?
same point I made the other day, and I'm a bit disappointed that we haven't had a proposal come to us about how you would include it. Just to say at stage 2, that's 6 months down the track at least, before that comes back to us. I know that some councillors specifically asked for it to be in stage 1, and I would have thought at least that option would be here for us. But speaking generally then about the issue, I would like to see that included, because I believe that if we're banning it in children's playground areas, some of them are actually part of sports fields, or a lot right alongside sports fields, and I think it's confusing for the public. If you allow it in some of our parks and not in others, I would prefer to have it banned in all of the parks, actually, unless, again, maybe there was a designated smoking area. And Councillor Boss brought up a reasonable point from a smoker's viewpoint. He said, if I go to watch a kids' soccer game and want to have a smoke, I'll go across the other side of the field. And I know that Councillor Boss does that sort of thing, but equally I know that many other smokers don't even consider that at the moment. And we should be at least putting with a policy some pressure in that area. So again, if we're not going to define an area and they can smoke anywhere around that, the people who don't want to participate in smoking don't have that choice, unless we amend our policy to include that.
Right. So at the moment, councillors, just if you're looking at the policy 4.1, that's what's included currently in the policy. And Councillor McPherson has offered a couple of comments about he's happy with what's in respect of Garden Place and Civic Square, but wanting to see parks in as well, I think, is what you're saying. Councillor Henneberry, did you have some questions?
Your Worship, well, no, it's along the lines of Councillor McPherson. And another area that I have is that we're going shortly into a new cafe at the Gardens. And what actual fact may be said is, well, if you're a paying customer, you can smoke outside. You've actually got a large amount of kids at those areas too, and I'm concerned that this doesn't rub off on other issues.
Can we just get a clarification on that, Tegan? At 4.1 as it's currently written, because we did ask you to clarify in the policy what the 10 metres meant. So can you just confirm that for us? It's the actual building and facility itself. So in respect of Hamilton Gardens, what does that actually mean?
So the bullet point below that, for clarity, we've actually separated the transport centre and the gardens. Although they are facilities, they have a much clearer defined boundary. So we've said the entire precinct of the Hamilton Transport Centre and the Hamilton Gardens.
To answer your question, Councillor Henneberry, the whole of the gardens.
Yes.
So that answers you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Bell.
Yes, I'd like to suggest an amendment to the smoke-free environment. If we look at 4.1, if we keep with the existing list, but if we extract the events and make that a separate bullet point, which reads, all events run or sponsored by Hamilton City Council will be smoke-free. And I have consulted the General Manager, who is comfortable with that change. My concern with the wording as proposed is that some of the events with sponsorship have multiple venues and all sorts of participants, charges and not charges. And this, I understand, would enable staff to put a stake in the ground and say, we wish the events we run or that we contribute to be smoke-free.
So that would mean it would come out of the list and have a separate bullet point.
And I would second that, Your Worship.
Right, and that
Councillor
looks,
Bell wants to
people
move that.
seem happy with that. The Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. It's really a question to clarify in my mind. Sports fields and reserves, they're out.
They are.
Currently.
In the stage 1 approach.
Okay, and I'm just signalling my preference for that to be in. The issue that Councillor McPherson refers to, which is outside dining, quite rightly was raised by embargo. It didn't seem to be an issue when we were discussing it the day before until the publicity generated that outcome. I certainly have sympathy for the restaurateurs that have created a dynamic environment in Hamilton, and we should be very careful about impacting their business. But I'm also reminded when smoking on planes was considered quite normal, and so then there were concessions made that 10% of the plane would be non-smoking and the rest smoking. Well, gradually it evolved to the point where it was 80% non-smoking and 20%. And it was just a terrible outcome when you were in that last row of seats next to the smoking row. And so now there is no smoking in planes. People still fly. And they have their cigarette in smoke rooms in international airports. So I'm just a little bit sensitive about that because I do believe the restaurateurs can identify of the 6 tables outside, 2 or 3 for smokers, and then you could clearly decide you wanted to be outside, but you didn't want to be with the smokers. So there is an opportunity, I think, and that was my question, is are we able to deal with that now as an amendment? Because I agree with the other amendment that Councillor Bell has suggested as well. So can we get a common ground? How do we do that?
Okay, so if I could respond, the mechanism for putting the conditions on where smokers could or couldn't smoke within the outdoor dining areas could be done through the permitting process. Currently, through the outdoor dining permit process, they have to provide a map showing exactly where the tables are, where the chairs are, and a whole range of details. So that would be the mechanism.
So that's a simple process. It doesn't involve consultation or anything else.
And
staff can make that decision.
Yeah, and just in relation to the restaurant and garden place, they were very reasonable in their response and their approach. I think the basis for their issues were, if it were across the city as a blanket ban for all dining, outdoor dining, they could live with that. But what it's setting up, in their view, was a slightly disadvantage for them. If there were people, patrons wanting to smoke, they may decide not to go to embargo and go to a different premise instead. So that was
and the sports fields and reserves?
The issue with sports fields is that they're parks, like the category should be considered as parks and reserves, because sports fields are...
Yes, which is it really? That's the difference.
That's right.
Isn't it?
The
When
sport
it
is
and
the
when isn't it?
activity.
Okay.
The park and the reserve is
So the wording
areas.
could
Right,
be,
yeah.
potentially,
It
parks and
would,
reserves.
it would be, yeah, my preference if council wanted to include that into stage 1 would be just to say parks and reserves, because it's very confusing if you have a sign saying, you know, no smoking at the sports field. You know, sports may only happen for 2 hours every day. Does that mean that people can smoke for the rest of the day? It's just a clarity issue. So if council wanted to, I would suggest it would be used in parks and reserves.
Because the irony
Okay,
is... Okay,
so thank you. No, I think this is how we're going to proceed here. So I'm going to ask Councillor Westphal to move the policy. I think I'm reading this right. The policy as presented with the removal of the events one into a separate bullet point, because I got nods around the table about that. And then I think we will take, if there are any amendments to that, then we'll take them that way. Otherwise, it's all going to get too confusing.
All right.
So are you happy to move it like that?
And I'll second it to put on the
Right,
table.
so councillors, we're looking at 4.1. So the policy as it is presented with the changes has been moved with the removal of the all events run and sponsored by Hamilton City Council comes out and it's a separate bullet point which will read, at all events run or sponsored by Hamilton City Council will be smoke-free.
Yes.
And that's been seconded. So now I'm going to take any amendments to that? And councillor McPherson.
So, Your Worship, I've got the Garden Place suggestion, and that would be the wording that's in the memo.
No, we're not. We don't need to go. So is this an amendment to 4.1, is it?
Yeah, well, I don't know which part it should go in, but it's certainly an amendment to go in.
And what
there.
is the amendment?
The wording that's in the memo, as I said, started to say, but it would be, and are seated at designated outdoor dining facilities provided by that business, subject to the proportion being less than 50%. Now,
Right,
sorry.
no, hold on a minute. Just, yes, you just do.
Yeah,
If-
just
we'll
explain.
we'll just see if we've got a seconder to that
Could I have
amendment.
a process ruling from you, Your Worship?
Yes.
Would you be prepared to take them one at a time? Because I can't go along with that, but I go along with all the rest.
Yeah, that's amendment.
So that's why we're going to deal with it by amendment?
Yeah.
Yes.
You-
So,
The
so-
word designated means, is along the lines of what Tegan suggested. They have to, but if someone designated the entire list of tables, then that would defeat the purpose. So that's what I'm trying to saying, as long as it's less than half, they can designate an area.
I'm going to ask, is there a seconder for this proposed
Yeah, I'll
amendment?
second it, put it on the table.
Right, so the Deputy Mayor has seconded that. So can you just read that amendment?
Okay. Permitted outdoor dining areas within Garden Place will be exempt from the smoke-free prohibitions, providing those smoking are paying customers and are seated at designated outdoor dining facilities provided by that business, subject to that, those facilities being less than half that premises outdoor dining area. Yeah.
Right, so
Your
can I
Worship,
just- could I just get a question for Tegan before you speak? So Tegan, can you just clarify for me what you said before, that if the policy as presented covers Garden Place and Civic Square, are you saying that through a permitting process this can be dealt with in another way? Can you just repeat what you said about that?
So I was saying that if council wanted to create an exemption but wanted to control that, the mechanism to do that would be through the permitting process and the outdoor dining.
Right. So if council wanted to use that mechanism to control the smoking, in relation to 4.1, does Garden Place and Civic Square have to come out?
No, Garden Place and Civic Square would remain as a smoke-free environment, but we would have a clause outlining the exceptions.
And carry on saying where would that be?
The proposed clause that Councillor McPherson just read out.
And that would be inserted in the policy?
Yes, I would put that straight under that bullet pointed list.
Right, okay, thank you.
Your Worship, the wording is slightly cumbersome, but there's no way around it, and certainly in this short time. The intention is to respond to the complaint from Embargo and maybe from some other places, and Councillor Boss's comments at the meeting last week, to allow for restaurants that so decide to use some, but less than half of their outdoor tables for smokers, so that it doesn't say smokers can never come and smoke in Garden Place, but it does strictly control that.
Right.
And I think I think it needs to be spelt out a little bit in the policy, otherwise staff don't have much guidance, and restaurateurs and cafes don't have guidance, and that's what we're trying to do, say what is allowed and what's not allowed.
Right, thank you. Now I've got Councillor Forsyth.
Thank you. Just a question to Tegan. Can you give us an idea of what sort of timeframe you're looking at stage 2?
It's after 6 months, so it would be based on a report coming back to strategy and policy, monitoring the effectiveness of the policy, and if it was being effective, then we would look to roll it out to further areas.
And your suggestion is that parks and reserves
would be part of the stage 2.
Right. Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. A question again to Tegan. Councillor Henneberry raised the issue of Hamilton Gardens, and with a new operator going in there, opening in the summer season, that is an issue. How would we resolve the issue if Councillor McPherson's amendment was accepted to allow the restaurateur at the gardens to have a section of tables for smokers and non-smokers?
Yes, that's a good question. It would be council's decision to apply that to.
So that could apply under their consent. Staff could approve at the Hamilton Gardens outdoor tables of which...
This is only for Garden Place, Mike.
No, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that point. But I'm just saying, picking up on Councillor Henneby's point about the Hamilton Gardens, because it says the entire precinct of Hamilton Transport Centre and Hamilton Gardens.
Councillors, can we just, Lance, would you just like to speak to some of the issues that are being discussed?
Well, under the policy that's been proposed, staff wouldn't have the authority to do that. The other thing you need to bear in mind is that we're finalising the arrangements with the new operator. We haven't signed the contract, but legally the discussions we've had, they do have a contract verbally. So we'd have to talk to that operator about that. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the committee meeting the other day because of other commitments, so I think Councillor Chesterton has raised a valid point. One option might be to have a similar type of clause in there for that operation, similar to the restaurants and garden places.
So just to clarify, you're proceeding on the basis with the new operator that there would be a smoking area in their cafe restaurant area? This would be news to them?
It would be. To be honest, we haven't had that discussion.
Right, thank you. Okay. Yep, so just in relation to the question that's been raised, Tegan, it would mean then that this proposed amendment would then also be extended to include the Hamilton Gardens cafe area?
I would need to check, but my understanding is that the outdoor dining permit doesn't apply to the gardens. It applies to what the public places bylaw defines as public places, which are walkways and...
Yes. Look, councillors, what I'm concerned about again is, of course, more questions get raised as we work our way through this. And I think, again, Tegan's not able to answer completely some of the questions that we're raising, which are good issues for us to talk through. And I would be concerned if we sort of move our way through this without actually having all the answers. I'm looking to you, Councillor Westphal, as chair of that committee. Do you have a view?
Look, I'm just getting a bit concerned about this. I think we need to stay within the law, so if that's what the law says in relation to Garden Place, that's fine. 6 months is not a long time, and I would rather just have, my personal preference is to have the list as we've got there with the alterations that have been made, not the parks, and just see how it goes, and it actually gives staff time to, for other people that may have things like the Garden Place situation that we haven't known about. And then in 6 months' time, we can fix all those things up and go to stage 2. And it gives staff time to look through all of those things. So I really want to keep it as simple as possible.
Yes, so I suppose, Councillor Westphal, what I was asking you is, are there more questions than answers currently that mean that perhaps now is not the time to be signed those? Bearing in mind, I understand councillors are quite keen to get the policy through, but as we're working through this, there are more questions being raised than have immediate answers. And I'm concerned that we don't go through, push this through without those having been resolved. So
I share your concern.
Right. So just as chair of that committee, would you be happy if it was then sent back to your committee?
Yes, I would.
Now, I understand, Councillor McPherson, that will frustrate you.
Hang on, point of order, Your Worship. You've raised an entire new thing. We agreed with all councillors there the other day that we were going to have the debate and make decisions here. And we came along armed with the information to make the decisions. I've moved an amendment, one responding to a point that staff have noted to us about one specific area of town. That is not broadening the debate any further than the actual information provided to us by staff for this meeting. People can vote yes or no, to delay it another 6 weeks at least, I don't think is on. That's not what we decided 2 days ago. That's not what we came to the meeting prepared to do. Just because someone's moved an amendment in line or similar to a staff proposal with information we've got and you've raised, you're suggesting we change the process when we're in the middle of a debate about an amendment.
Sorry, so any other councillor have a view? Because thank you for your comments, Councillor McPherson, but and your amendment's clear, but then of course what it's done is raised other issues that do need clarity. So Councillor Boss, I had you next on the list.
Yes, Your Worship. I support what Marika's trying to do. I have seen the situations before where we have rushed into things and we have made the odd blue. And what Councillor McPherson just brought up, that half an outside area can be smoke-free but the other half can't, then if we are trying to stop people from blowing smoke on non-smokers, if that's what we're trying to do, then we need to look very, very carefully on what we do with our parks and sports fields as well, because it may well be that Councillor McPherson's point of smokers having a half an area could well apply to half a sports field. And the reason I say that is quite simple. On most sports fields in the city or at schools, people will, there will be a favoured side to watch it from. If a person walks across the other side of a sports field or a park, away from other people, who are they harming? But what they may well be doing, we may well end up in a situation where grandchildren and children needed to be supported in their sport. And if that person doesn't turn up and go in a place where he's not annoying anybody else, all we're doing is punishing the child. And so I think we need to go back and have a look at these issues and not rush something through today.
Okay, I've got Councillor Mahood.
I think all the discussion today has been relevant, but what it clearly illustrates to me is that if you go back to the motion that we've already got on the table, which is, and read it all, endorse option 1, develop a smoke-free policy as the most appropriate mechanism, etc. And then you've got down there the who's going to be part of that 6-month work. What you've got at the end, which is as a result of us going to start saying we need a bit more information, is in my view a choice that this council may choose to debate specific things or not. I would suggest, and I'm not going to support the amendment, not because I don't think it's good, but because I actually support your points and those of the mover, and I am the seconder of this motion, that I think it would be appropriate if we actually put the policy that we agreed to 2 days ago on the table as our start. And then it gives opportunity, not for one cafe, restaurant, but for all of them to be sensibly asked, this is what we're doing, this is the basic intent, we are planning to go further. How we go further, democracy says to me, we should be giving them the opportunity to make comment before we go and make, my words, policy, further policy on the who. I am not against the amendment, but is it enough? Is it too much? Is it the right amount? Would we be more sensible in all these extra things in here? We may well say there has to be in the gardens, I don't know, an opportunity for there to be a designated area. I think that may well be the case, but until we have worked this through, let's be sensible, colleagues. Let's just go with the motion. By all means, ask all the questions. We've got a couple that have come up today from our colleagues, and quite rightly so, but as you rightly say, it's possibly more questions will be asked. But we are here, and I remember our minister this morning telling us, do it with wisdom, do it for the people. I'm collating it a little bit, but not. But that was the essence. I think we have the right to and should be making this policy as it stands now. Pick up all those issues, ask the question so that when we confirm it, whether it's in 6 months' time, which I hope it can be, or in a year's time or whatever, we're doing it with knowledge and understanding of what the impact will be, and not have people come back in a year's time and say, "Dude, that wasn't a very good policy. What were you thinking, Council? It didn't work for us." So I'm going to support the motion. I'm not supporting the amendment as it's in, and not because I don't want to, but because it's not the right time. And if those work come back, then is there a need to put in a further thing saying the extra paper, whatever it is, be considered to come back at the next, in 6 months' time? I don't think so. I think that's implicit in what we're doing.
Procedural point. Procedural point. I want to withdraw the amendments and support the motion.
Right, so I was just going to tell you, councillors, I checked the rules of procedure and we would need to have put the amendment, but Councillor McPherson has withdrawn it, so there is no amendment, there isn't a motion, but...
I don't even know what it is anymore.
The motion...
The original motion.
The motion is the policy as it is presented here, with the moving of that new bullet point.
With Daphne's change.
Yes, with Daphne's change. That is the motion.
Yeah.
And that is the only one on the table. There's no other amendments on the table. And I'm just going to check Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Worship. I will obviously support the motion. I would have also supported the amendment and any other steps that we could have taken to make smoking less acceptable. Let's remind ourselves, this country and the government of New Zealand has committed to being smoke-free by 2025. So it's about time we start working towards that achievable goal. Smoking kills, it's as simple as that. It's bad, it's madness. I think I'm entitled to go to a restaurant, sit outside and not have smoke blowing in my face. I think it's a great idea as an interim step towards working to become smoke-free, that there is a designated no smoking area outside. We have in fact, while pursuing a smoke-free environment, paradoxically have now moved smokers all outside, and now I have to suffer that if I want to dine outside. It's madness. So I'm disappointed today that we haven't had the courage of our convictions to take further steps. But I accept that at least we have a policy. But let's be real. We've got to stop smoking. We've committed to it by 2025. So let's start working to achieve that. It kills you if you don't.
Thank you. Councillor Forsyth.
I'll just ask once more, you might change your mind, because I am supportive of most of the environments here, but I do feel for at least Embargo, but there probably are more operators in Garden Place besides Embargo that haven't been consulted. I note that when we go to stage 2, that we've committed to public consultation in that phase, yet we're not prepared to go through it, in my mind, to the same extent as phase 1. So my question then again, Your Worship, is can we take the item separately? Because as it stands, I'm going to vote against it, because I do believe that the Garden Place operators, I mean, I'm like everyone else, I hate smoking too, but I still believe that while we take that next step, that we do need to be inclusive and publicly consulted.
And so, Councillor Forsyth, the way to approach that is if you want to put an amendment on the table, you should do that. And that will deal with the issue that I think you're raising. Okay?
A point of clarification, Your Worship. My understanding is that the Garden Place business owners have been consulted twice.
They have.
And as part of the report, we were given the results of both of those surveys.
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. Now I've got Councillor Gower.
Thank you, Worship. I will be brief and probably only repeat what I said in the actual meeting itself. And that is the fact that I think we've got to take the first step. We've taken the first step with the bylaw. I think it's very, very dangerous for anybody to start actually creating policy on the hoof as a result of other discussions. And I think at the end of 6 months, this policy will be looked at very thoroughly. I've got no doubt there will be amendments to that, or even the introduction of perhaps a bylaw. Let's see, let's take the first things first, and I think this is an excellent start. Don't complicate the issue.
Okay, there's no other speakers, so Councillor Westphal, you move. You want to write a reply? No. Okay. Right, councillors, so I think we'll go to the board for this. So the everyone is clear on the motion? Councillor Bell.
Oh, I'm just looking to see what
Carried,
that was.
Your Worship, 9-2.
Okay. So there were other items on your minutes?
Yes, so if we can just go to item 8, at the meeting, and I'm looking at the minutes again, there was a lot of discussion about the Gallagher intersection and the Cobham intersection underpass, and even though it is in the Access Hamilton strategy, and we do get updated on that, I feel that at least it should be noted in the minutes that councillors did wish to be kept informed on further developments in relation to the Cobham Drive underpass and the Gallagher intersection, because that is something I understand that staff will be continuing to work on, because that is what the indication was from the meeting. So basically I'm asking that just one sentence, councillors asked to be kept informed on further developments on the Cobham Drive underpass and the Gallagher intersection.
Okay. All right, so you're moving.
So
I'll second it with the addition.
Right, Councillor Gallagher, did you want to be? Oh, just noted.
Yeah, just take no part on the Gallagher intersection. I also just want to, picking now you've raised item 8, we had a good comprehensive discussion, and I'm very much looking forward to councillors overseeing our submission with reference to the Parliamentary Select Committee with reference to the Land Transport Management Amendment Bill, and obviously we have a couple of weeks left to sort that out, but looking forward to participation in that exercise.
Okay. Right, councillors, all those in favour? Any against? Carried. Final item?
And just item 17, Your Worship, which was a statement of proposal for the Hamilton City Speed Limit Amendment Bylaw.
Yes.
Councillors were advised at the meeting that they had to put everything on the table which they wanted to add to either the schedules or the bylaw document itself, because it was going out for consultation. So I feel it's important to have noted in the minutes the items that councillors did ask to be added to the schedules. And that was, first of all, adding Puketi Road to the 60k schedule.
Yes.
It is noted as a minute note, but I think it should be.
It was actually a resolution.
It was part of the resolution that Puketi Road from here to there be added to the 60 schedule, and also that staff and St Paul's Collegiate be added to the list of schools. But I understand that Chris has investigated that, and I think he can confirm that that's already on the list.
There was St Paul's and Fraser, I think, were the two. So, Chris?
Yeah, councillors, there were actually 3 issues that I undertook to come back to council today. So the first one was Puketi Road, and the chair is quite right. The decision was made to add that to the schedule. So I think it would probably need to be captured in the resolution, and I have a proposed amendment to Resolution C that would capture that. So just for councillors' information, the current situation is that Puketi Road is 80 kilometres per hour from Millthorpe Road through to Maui Street, and either side of that is 50k. It's a length of about 1.5 kilometres. So as I understand, the proposal is to change that current 80k to 60 kilometres per hour. So look, we believe that might be a difficult one to sustain, but notwithstanding that, it's appropriate to add that to the schedule for consultation. So my suggestion for a revised resolution, which Anthony has, is on Resolution C, if you go right to the end of that where it says bracket Section 83 and 160 of the Local Government Act 2002, to add comma, subject to adding Puketi Road from Millthorpe Road to Maui Street to Schedule 6, brackets 60 kilometres per hour, and updating Schedule 15, brackets map, and then comma, then back to and commit the consultation. So that would capture
Right, thank
the
you.
requirement we need.
Now, schools?
So in terms of the school, St Paul's Collegiate Hukanui Road, there was a discussion about that school not having a 40 kilometre per hour speed zone. So look, previous engagement with St Paul's Collegiate has resulted in permanent 40 kilometre per hour speed zones on the other side of the school, so around St Paul's Street, Fenn Street and some of those roads there, as this is where the main pedestrian activity for the school is. So it was also noted at the time that there's little student activity or roadside activity on Peachgrove Road due to the large car parking area that they had there. So when that was consulted on previously, it was the 40k on the other side of St Paul's Collegiate.
Can I ask?
Sorry, Councillor Forsyth was first.
Thank you. So, through you, Your Worship, does that mean that, because at the committee meeting you were going to phone St Paul's and ask them if the Hukanui Road was the road that they wanted to have included? Does that mean you did that and the answer was no?
No, we haven't re-engaged with the school, just reporting on the previous engagement with the school, and that those were the decisions that were made at the time to look at the 40k's on the western side of the school, I think, if you like, where a lot of the school activity is, and not look at the Hukanui Road side. So we haven't re-engaged with the school.
So just for that, when did you have that discussion with them and decide on the 40k's on the western side? How long ago?
Look, I'm not sure the exact time, but that would have been some time ago, you know, a year or so ago. So the option would be available to council if they wanted to add that one to the schedule, or at least put it into the consultation process again.
If they don't want it, they'll say.
So that was the discussion at the committee meeting, and that was what the intention was. So unless there's anything different, we'll keep it there and we'll see what happens.
Hang on, I want to discuss that particular thing.
I haven't finished yet, Councillor, I was coming to you about that. That's an option, that we just keep it there or we remove it. So there was just a couple of other schools you were to check on?
Not so I think the question, there was just a discussion around how many of the schools are covered by 40k. So the answer I have to that is almost all of our schools are covered, apart from about 4 or 5, covered in some way by 40 kilometres per hour. So we talked about the Melville School, which has got the underpass and not having the 40k on Ohaupo Road. There are another couple of other schools which are special needs schools, where a lot of the pupils are transported by vehicles, and so there's no activity. So that's the northern city northern school, etc. But most of the schools are covered in some way by 40k.
Right.
But the final point that was raised at the meeting was Ellicott Road outside Fraser High, and just clarity around the proposal there. So it's currently covered by a variable 40k sign. There was concern from one councillor if we were proposing to turn that to a permanent 40k zone, and the answer is we're not. The current situation will prevail where it's a variable 40k speed zone.
Right, thank you. So Councillor Forsyth, you were the one that was raising the issue with schools. So
thank you. If I could reply. I beg to differ. My recollection at the committee meeting was that the principal, the headmaster at least, was going to be called, and the question posed, did they want to have the variable at least 40k zone provision on Peachgrove Road, and I stand by that. Having on many occasions actually tried to use that access point to the school. It's not necessarily the fact that it has high pedestrian traffic or not, it's the fact that it's actually quite difficult getting in and out of the school during peak times because of the volume of traffic on the road. And I'm suggesting that if the traffic is slowed down, it helps those young drivers run through the gaps or get through the gaps at that peak traffic time. And I have been at that school on a number of occasions, well, at least twice, where accidents have occurred because kids try and squeeze through those gaps. So for me, it's not about the pedestrian access, etc. It's more about the ability and the driving ability of kids, students at the school, and they're going to be aged 16, 17, 18, and being able to negotiate getting in and out of the school at peak hour times with the volume of traffic, the buses, the trucks, everything else that travels up and down that road safely. And I don't see why this particular school should be disadvantaged.
Okay, so the discussion about consistency with the schools, fine. Now, Councillor McPherson, was it on the schools?
No, it's specifically on this one, actually, Your Worship.
Thank you.
And I support Margaret's comments, but I've got my own views of that. Firstly, just to correct the General Manager, it's not Peachgrove Road there, it's Pukenui Road. I thought as engineer you should get the technical term correct. But secondly, we've actually, I'm not sure where the GM is coming from when he says there's not many pedestrians there. We've got Orbiter bus stops, our busiest bus service, on either side of the road, out in front of St Paul's School. Now, I myself have been driving along there in the morning, heading northwards, and had children in St Paul's uniform get off the Orbiter bus and cross the road. They don't go back up to the shops at Davies Corner to use the pedestrian crossing. They go straight across to the entrance, and that is reasonably frequent. Probably no self-respecting teenager would walk 50 metres out of their way to use a proper pedestrian crossing, actually. I mean, that's the fact of life there. And there are parents dropping off kids on both sides of the road. Sure, it's got a good entrance and parking area inside, but not everyone's using it. There's a lot of parents drop their kids off at that school on the outside. The other thing that worries me is unless we have, like on a Haupo Road, actually a fence down the middle and a pedestrian underpass where you really divide the pedestrians off from the cars, I don't think it's safe to have some schools not 40 Ks.
So the issue
Hang on,
here,
can I finish?
But I think Councillor McPherson, just focusing on the issue here is whether or not this Pukenui Road, outside St Paul's the Collegiate, is added into the proposal. And what I'm hearing from you is yes, it should be, and you articulated some reasons.
No, I hadn't finished articulating the reasons. The most
I think it was waffling off onto what are the options.
Your Worship.
Okay, so 40K.
Look, Your Worship, if you stopped and listened for a bit instead of thinking that people are waffling and keeping on interrupting them, you might actually hear what the point is.
Relevance is the issue.
Thank you.
What are your final points as to why it should be on the schedule?
So I'd like you to withdraw your comment about waffling, Your Worship.
I'm happy to withdraw it, Councillor McPherson, but
you.
what are your other points about 40Ks outside Pukenui, on Pukenui Road outside St Paul's?
I can't remember them. I have to start again, Your Worship. So if you please stop interrupting me when I'm talking on the issue is with St Paul's and with some of the other schools like Fraser, I think if we have an inconsistent 40K zone, i.e. there's a few places where it's not the case, we're going to confuse the public. And the purpose of our original strategy and policies in this area was to have every school covered unless there were clear physical demarcations like on a Haupo Road. There are no such demarcations at St Paul's, there aren't at Fraser High either, and perhaps one or two of the other schools. There are only two places where we've got the fence and the underpass. The other one's up on Hillcrest Road, outside Hillcrest Normal School, as far as I'm aware. So I think we shouldn't be including all the others, not almost all. So my resolution wouldn't be just, I guess, for St Paul's. It would be all schools that we're planning to do that in.
Okay, any other comments on this? So what I've got is we've corrected the wording on the Puketi Road outside the Equestrian Centre, and that's been included in the resolution at C. The question is, are we including the 40Ks outside schools, and if so, which ones or all? Guidance?
Well, look, I'd be happy to. I think we have always said that we want all the schools in 40K zones. This is a consultation document. I would be happy to add all schools to this, and then we can discuss that later on.
Councillors, yes, I'm getting seconded. Is that you, Councillor Hood, seconding?
No, I'm questioning it. Before I seconded it. Did you second it? I seconded your written. No, I don't know.
No, Margaret or I will, or someone.
Yeah, so at the moment, councillors, we've got Puketi in, and we've got all schools 40K. Chris, you can do the appropriate amendments to what schedules, etc., if all of the schools are in. Is that clear? I'm just going to, Councillor
Look, I think that...
is that easy, I guess, for you to do then?
Yep, that's easy to do. It would be we'll just change that amendment to include and all remaining schools not covered by 40K to Schedule 12.
Yes. Right. So that's the wording. And so Councillor Westphal is moving this one, 17, with those in C, and that's seconded by Councillor Wilson. Now, Councillor Mochod, I think you said you wanted to speak.
Question, it may well have been answered. I have no problem with the specific ones, and indeed it may well be that through consultation of all, because it makes it simpler, everyone knows that outside of school it could happen or not. But I'm just sort of thinking common sense. If you go to somewhere like State Highway 1, I'd like to remind people how busy State Highway 1 is, well, I suppose it is probably at standstill sometimes going past Hillcrest Normal School. Will the consultation be complicated if we start having to get into what I call the TNZ consultation for this? Because it would be then, I assume, or would it, when we're going out to consultation, because they have the final say on that or any state highway. So just make my life simpler before I know whether I'm going to support the motion or say we've gone a little bit too far.
So we don't have jurisdiction over state highways, so this resolution would be for roads that we have jurisdiction over, not state highways.
And so therefore the only other entrance to the school at, say, Hillcrest Normal, which is on Johnsview, Howell, I can't remember, McCracken, is already 40. So I'm just saying this maybe isn't necessary. We're all getting a bit excited about it. I'm happy that it goes into consultation. We might say, well, you know, there is, but I am thinking that we're getting into a can of worms, and we should. The logic those others were left out was quite sensible. We've added a couple in. I mean, you know, St Paul's, happy to look at it. Fraser, happy to look at whatever. But I think let's just be sensible here.
Okay.
We're again trying to sort of see a catch-all rather than actually understand what we're trying to achieve. Which is
Right, so we've got, people are clear then on 17, what that now reads. We'll go to the board on it. Sorry, Councillor Gow, did you?
Thank you. You did see I did vote against this motion when it came to the committee, and that was as a result of probably what I saw may have been an anomaly. Staff could not clear that up at the time. They have since communicated with me, have cleared it up. I'm now completely happy with that. I'd probably like to make one small comment, please, going back 7 or 8 years ago. Myself and Councillor Person were actually on a committee that's actually had a look at the 40Ks outside schools, which was at that stage shrugged off by Wellington. So although I'm a firm believer the difference between management and governance and keeping out of the kitchen, I think there are times where probably you can go in the kitchen to help the greater cause.
As we're now on transcript and record, just for the record, that the 40K, of course, was because of the brilliant City Council and the brilliant leadership of Councillor McPherson, Gow and others, and the very competent and excellent local member of Parliament at the time of Hamilton West who lobbied Annette King. And I think it's very important this council do share praise where praise is due, and I'm delighted this council has complimented the former member and the former government for that. Now I'm speaking, and we're at the committee, we perhaps didn't spend long enough on this particular item, and I hope we have sort of gone into sufficient detail, because I know a number of you felt a bit shortchanged that perhaps we didn't comprehensively discuss this. But on a very serious note, I just want to emphasise in the full chamber my very strong commendation and praise for all the work that members of staff have done, you know, and Chris Allen, please do convey that to your team, because it's a great pride to me when I went to the Trappians conference and probably became more aware than I had previously of just how we are a leader in some of these slow street and road safety exercises. So I think I just want to compliment those of you, and particularly the former chair of the Infrastructure Marika committee, because there was a lot of really good workshop type work done to get us to this point, and I'm going to be listening to the consultation process, because I think, frankly, we can probably still go further, but this is a very, very good platform in terms of road safety and good urban design and good urban environment. And I just certainly want to thank everyone concerned, and will be strongly supporting these proposals.
Thank you. Can we do this on the voices? Yes. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you. Okay.
Your Worship, I just want to make, I have to apologise to you as Chair that your meeting has been taken over by the continuation of my meeting on Thursday. But the fact is that we had a lot of questions. We only got the minutes yesterday, and my meetings are always scheduled 1 or 2 days before the full council meeting. So we're going to endeavour in the future to make sure that, we may just have to go on till 5 or 6 o'clock and have pizzas. Just
Or do it here.
We do it here.
Thank you, Councillor Westphal. Right, we're on to item number 12, which is the Statutory Management Committee meetings. Councillor Gow.
Yeah, I move on the noted for 15th of August and also the meeting on the 28th of August.
So those two seconded by Councillor Mahood and Councillor Gallagher, are you speaking?
I just want to call an item.
Which item did you want to call?
It's the Saffamore Jones Place item, Your Worship.
It's been helpful to know that. That is where? Page number where?
Page 12.
Page 12.
Page 12.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think and also acknowledge the presence of our former Mayor and her team from the Theatre of the Impossible Charitable Trust. And this indeed was the theatre of the possible, in that obviously, and we talked a wee bit before about we've been talking about our history, we've been talking about our 150th anniversary of the Hamilton bit of human habitation in this area. But I think this is a really great example of underscoring that we do have, obviously, as city, many, many stories that form a very, very rich history. And it's just excellent, in my view, that we start to relate our locality, street names, place names to that Hamilton story. And I want to compliment everyone in the Theatre of the Impossible Charitable Trust and all the work that they did to actually take this particular unique story. And of course, it relates absolutely to that centenary that we're going to be acknowledging in 2014. I understand that we are looking at an appropriate statue artwork in Saffamore Jones Place. Look forward to that. And I think these are good examples that when kids walk around our town with the appropriate inscriptions, the directional signage, that they do get, and we all get, a greater sense of the uniqueness and richness of our city's history. So I compliment strongly our committee in actually improving this street name change, and very much the Toddy Trust for all of their work and bringing what I think is a very, very satisfactory outcome.
Councillor Forsyth, did you? Oh, no. Right. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you very much. Item 14, which is your committee minutes, Councillor Gallagher.
Operation and Activity Performance Committee meeting, and I just want to, with the exception of item 12, I want to call that up and note that items, I think 15, 16 were, for recommendation, the rest are reporting. So I just want to move the Operation and Activity Performance Committee report, and noting the items for adoption by this council, with the exception of item 12.
Seconded. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. I now wish to move under item 12 that it be noted that that it be noted that the committee received an update on the situation at the wastewater treatment
plant from the group manager. And I'm wondering if I just have a seconder to that. This is just again, thank you. And in the context of that motion, I would ask that Chris Allen, if you'd like just to provide this full council in terms of our governance and monitoring role, if you'd just like to give us an update of the situation.
Yeah, councillors, pleased to advise you that we have made two good appointments to the operator roles. These people are currently in their role and coming up to speed very quickly. One of the US operators left some time ago, and the remaining US operators leave tomorrow, finish tomorrow. So that's all as articulated to council in terms of the employment issues. Look, the situation out there is still a challenging situation for us, where we still got a critical vacancy there. There was a long-term vacancy that we haven't filled. Look, we're continuing to work on just how we manage the compliance issues out of the plants.
Thank you, Your Worship. With the leave of the seconder, I would ask that, and that council note the update report from the group manager, and I would be putting that as the motion to council.
So Henneberg, you seconded. Are you seconding again?
Yes, I am.
In favour? Against?
Starwake Roger.
Carried, thank you. Item 15, Finance and Monitoring Council.
Yes, Your Worship, I'll move those motions. The motion, sorry, that the minutes be accepted.
Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Councillors, we've finished the open part of the meeting, and we're now going to move to public excluded, so I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, members of the public, for coming along.